Our guest today is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chicago Housing Authority. He directs all aspects of the third largest housing authority in the country. Our guest today is a former resident of the CHA's Rockwell Gardens. Prior to his current position, he served as Executive Director of the Rockford Housing Authority and the Cook County Housing Authority. Our guest today earned his bachelor's degree from Fisk University. Most of his professional experience was with Allstate Insurance Company, where he worked for 19 years. He and his wife, Pauletta, have two beautiful children, Louis A. Jordan III and their daughter, Dana. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the City Club of Chicago, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chicago Housing Authority, Louis Jordan. Louis?
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. And I'm sitting here and I'm clearly understanding the difference in being nervous and being humbled. And I'm truly humbled by the show of concern and interest in what we're doing at the Chicago Housing Authority. Most of you have heard from my predecessors, Sharon Gitz-Gilliam and Terry Peterson, and I'm proud to be able to stand on the work that they've done thus far in advancing this plan for transformation under the leadership of Mayor Daley. And as I walked around the room, it became apparent that in this whole notion of the plan for transformation, a lot of you, in one way or another, have had a lot to do with our success as we move forward. So I'd like for you to give yourselves a hand in the roles you played in this effort. And I'd like to recognize a few folks in the crowd. My Board of Commissioners who provide a very steady hand of guidance. We have Commissioner Ponce here, Carlos Ponce. Commissioner Ivers. Commissioner Harris. Commissioner Young. And Commissioner Amy. And again, without being redundant, Valerie, Jarrett, thank you so much for being here today. This is very important. Thank you so much. Before we get into the presentation, I'd like to share with you a little bit about myself. I'm a Chicagoan, born and raised on the West Side. As mentioned, my family was living in Rockwell Gardens when I came into this world about 50 years or so ago. Son of a police officer, a mother who worked for the Bell system, so we're very much ingrained in the fabric of Chicago. Most of my career has been spent in the corporate world, spending a considerable amount of time serving on various boards and in community volunteering capacities. I finally decided to stop fighting this internal struggle of what I wanted to do versus what I needed to do. With that being said, about 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to take the helm at the Rockford Housing Authority. After that, going to Cook County, and then just about a year ago, having the pleasure of becoming the CEO of the Chicago Housing Authority. And as I look at that journey, I'm not sure if it was after my first resident meeting that was full of passion, anger, and fear, or if it was the day someone asked me if I would play Santa Claus to a group of kids who had never been to a mall to see a Santa Claus. But I'm not sure what it was, but something told me to stop fighting what I want to do and really do what I need to do. And at this time in my professional career, I couldn't think of a better time or better place than to be here at the Chicago Housing Authority. Having benefited from some of the same support systems offered today, I know the true potential that lies within someone who lives in public housing, be it young or old. And I must say, while my long experience at the Rockford and Cook County Housing Authorities have taught me much, the 11 months that I've spent here in Chicago has taught me more about what is necessary and possible to do if one is to operate, and the support needed to operate, a housing authority that is an asset to both the residents and the community it serves. I arrived at an opportune time, able to build on the stellar work of my predecessors, work that has changed the shape and fabric of public housing in the city and the lives of those that we serve. Consider this. Only 10 years ago, Chicago Housing Authority was in a precarious state. Buildings were falling apart, vacancies were rampant, and HUD or the federal courts had control of virtually every aspect of the authority's operation. The authority had been in receivership since 1995, with HUD assuming control of assets and its operations. I guess, frankly put, we just weren't doing it the right way. Books were being written about the CHA developments as exemplary of the worst housing and worst place in the world to grow up if you really had a chance to grow up there. Although the CHA emerged from receivership in 1998 under new federal rules, all Chicago high-rise units had failed, and it seemed likely that the federal government was on the verge of demanding that the CHA tear down the 18,000 units of high-rise family housing and simply voucher the families into a private housing market that was already tight. And thank God for strong leadership, because I think had those decisions been made, as the federal government suggested, we would truly have a disaster on our hands right now. Mayor Daley, however, had a different idea. He and his team proposed that instead, the land and the federal dollars be used to create mixed-income communities where CHA residents would live side by side with market-rate renters and owners. In this way, he argued, CHA residents would be assured of a good housing, and the communities that had been constrained by the presence of obsolete high-rises could prosper with housing developments that acted as assets rather than blights on the communities. And if you think about it, you know, that old model of isolation, you know, clearly depicted in the picture here, nothing around it. Goods, services, infrastructure was all missing. And the expectation or the idea that we would expect one to flourish and grow in such an environment is absolutely ludicrous. So as we move forward, today all of the gallery high-rises are down. 9,000 apartments for seniors have been fully renovated, and failing developments are being replaced by mixed-income developments, where owners of $450,000 homes live side by side with people that rent through the CHA. Developments like Thank you. And it's, you know, a picture says 1,000 words. And it's critical that we all understand the interdependence that we have on one another as citizens, and how communities can help build those within the community and those around. Roosevelt Square, spanning the area around Racine and Roosevelt Road, that is replacing the massive outlet development. Oakwood Shores, replacing Madden Wells. West Haven, replacing the infamous Horner Homes. West End, replacing Rockwell Homes. Park Boulevard, replacing Stateway Gardens. You know, I was doing an interview not long ago with someone from the Wall Street Journal. She came in and we were talking about public housing, and it was tied into the presidential campaign, and she was asking questions about what had we done? Was it any better? And the particular reporter was a graduate from the University of Chicago, and she told a story about looking for something and ending up in Old Rockwell. And she talked about making a wrong turn and how devastating it was being there, making that wrong turn, not only being lost, but not having the comfort of asking somebody in the community how to get out, to get back on the beaten path. And as we talked, and we took her on the tour, you probably never read the article, because the intent of the article was to take a shot at what we weren't doing. And as she went on the tour and she went down that old street that she was once lost on and looked at the difference in the community, looked at the difference in the people in the community, I think she set her pen down and she looked and said, you guys are doing much better than you've been given credit for doing. And I say we are doing much better than we've been given credit for doing. But in saying that, I stand before you to say that there's still more work to be done. We can't nor will we rest on our laurels. There's a lot more work to be done, because while we look at developments like that we're very proud of, we still have some other developments that we're working on. And as we integrate the community, with the mixed income concept, we need to make sure that there's cohesiveness there. Because clearly, it's just not about changing bricks and mortars. We have to fashion a society where people are comfortable living among each other and with one another. You've probably passed some of these developments dozens of times and not realized that there are in fact new housing with CHA as you've gone through them. Again, if you're like me and you haven't been in some of these neighborhoods for a while, to drive by and see the difference, it's amazing. And I know when I first came on board, riding by what I once knew as Cabrini Green and seeing what we know as Parkside today is really, really a different look. And so we invite you, some of your homework as you leave is to go out and familiarize yourselves with some of these developments and help us tell the story of the good work that collectively as Chicagoans we've done to create a better quality of life for those we serve. In each development, all composed of for sale and rental housing, a third of the units are market rate home ownership, a third are affordable rental or for sale units, and a third are reserved for CHA residents. So the big question, how's it going? Our first test of success will people who have lived separately side by side, will people who have lived separately live side by side? The answer is yes. So we've taken groups of people that for years we've isolated, and we've now moved them near people who, in some cases, might say, weren't used to living next to those people. And we have to ask ourselves, have we been able to mesh those groups together? And I say we have, but at the same time, I say we still have work to do. A part of my work in corporate America, when I was with the Allstate Insurance Company, I was the process owner for the Diversity Education Initiative for our company. And I learned a lot about differences and how to value differences. And one of the things that I learned about diversity is that it comes in all different shapes and sizes. We can look just alike and have a tremendous amount of diversity between us. And so this effort in bringing people side by side is something that we see is working, but at the same time, we continue to work on it as we move forward. All developments are fully rented in each category, and the 2,700 for sale market rate units built to date as of September there were only 67 yet to be sold. So of 2,700 units, we've sold all but 67. Equally important, the developments are working for the surrounding community. West Haven, let's look at West Haven. Median home prices have increased by 64%. Residential property sales are up by 78% since 1999. Home purchase loans are up by almost 100%, and the income of people buying homes in the area is also increasing by 41% since 1991. And when you look at the economic climate we're in right now, any chart that can point up is a good chart in my mind. Any chart. In Roosevelt Square, the story is the same. Property values increasing with home sale prices up 84%, sales volumes up by 58%, home purchases are up by 145%. Per capita income of buyers has increased by 89%, and the amount of money borrowed for home improvements has increased by 398%. As important, retail investment, each of these communities has increased by 300%. Again, if you go back to some of those older slides where there was nothing around them, and as you ask yourself, well, in addition to having a great meal here, what is it that you can do? We need investment. We need folks to reinvest in these communities, commercial investment, retail investment. We need to have you help us continue to build on this wonderful story called the Plans for Transformation by putting businesses in communities, by creating jobs, by role modeling, and things of that nature so that those individuals, be it the public housing residents, the affordable, or the market rate residents, we can all mesh together and continue to contribute to this great city we call Chicago. The plan is also committed to increasing opportunity for residents, opportunities for better housing, employment, education, and family well-being. To that end, working with partners in the private sector, such as the city colleges, libraries, and schools, the CHA has created a broad array of education, job training, and job placement opportunities for our residents. Additionally, we have forged alliances with the state of Illinois to ensure child care with the Chicago Park District and the Schools for Youth Recreation and Education programs, and with employers to encourage their consideration of CHA residents for jobs. What are the results? Not only do CHA residents say they feel better, healthier, better taken care of, but the data suggests that there's been a tremendous improvement in the quality of life. Whereas in 2000, the average wage of a CHA working family was $10,000. Today, the figure is $19,000, with those who reside in the 8 Plan for Transformation communities earning an average of $24,000 a year. And I think if I can quote one of my commissioners, Sam Mendenhall, who isn't here, he consistently says, the best cure for poverty is a job. You have to create opportunities, and there has to be a true belief that people are capable of doing those jobs. And so these are just clear statistics of some of the success that I sincerely feel that we've made. We're not just building houses, we are part of rebuilding communities. While these victories are great, let me be clear that they've not been done alone. First and foremost are the CHA residents and residents of the surrounding communities who, together with the CHA, have participated in the entire planning process. The City of Chicago, Mayor Daley has backed up his vision with full cooperation of the city supporting the plan with staff, funding, and the creation of necessary infrastructure on which these new communities are built. And finally, the private philanthropic community leaders who from the beginning have understood what the transformation of lives and neighborhoods was their job to do, and not just the CHA. So that collaboration has clearly been there. Philanthropies like the MacArthur Foundation, which has provided both much needed financial support as important as the time and the ideas of their leadership, particularly that of Jonathan Fadden and Julia Stash, who's here. Let's give Julia another hand. Entities like the University of Chicago, whose schools and tutoring activities are enhancing our new Near-South communities, or the Partnership for New Communities, which not only supports the authority's workforce development, but also partnering with us as we try in this difficult economy to complete the sale of those 67 yet unsold homes. So who are we today? What role does the CHA play in the life of Chicago? We'll look at some slides that will really depict the differences. We are the city's largest landlord, renting to 25,000 families in classic development, senior housing, scattered site housing, and new communities. We are the city's largest payer of rent as a Chicago entity for the federal government housing voucher program, or we know as Section 8. We pay over $20 million a month in rent and landlord payments. So just imagine over $20 million a month if we were to pull that out of this tight economy right now. So I say that we need Chicago and Chicago needs us. We are one of the city's largest buyers of goods and services with a budget of nearly $1 billion. We are a partner in workforce development, having worked with schools, training programs, and employers to help prepare and secure work for more than 6,000 residents of the CHA over the past few years. I could not in good faith in these remarks without asking each of you to become our partner, not as an act of charity, but as a smart investment. We're building new neighborhoods with wonderful development opportunities, often supported by TIF funding. Each of these neighborhoods are great sites for stores, offices, or development of complementary housing. Think about these areas as you consider your development plans. Think about partnering with us in your role as employer. Hundreds of CHA residents are involved in improving their work skills through education or job training. They are working not for handouts, but for opportunities. Or think about working with us, with our youth, on scholarships and mentoring programs. Whatever activities you're interested in, we are here to be your partner. Like you, the CHA is working to be a great partner in creating a great future for Chicago and all its neighborhoods. Tell the story about mixed income communities that you live in, and I'll tell you, it's a proud story to tell. When I came on board, someone said, "Louis, what is one of the major things that you want to accomplish, while at the helm of CHA?" And while there's a lot of things I like to do, I liken back to when my parents and I lived in CHA. I like to create an opportunity for the children who are in our developments today to have a choice when they become leaseholder age. Just have a choice, a choice to go on to college, a choice to get an apartment somewhere else, a choice to pick up a trade. But I want to reduce that automatic notion that says that because my mom lived here and my dad lived here, I want to live here. And through partnerships with good folks like you, we can continue to make those choices possible. This whole notion of mixed income communities, they work. I know they work. I have a son who's a sophomore at the University of Illinois. One day my son came home and he said, "Dad, I want to be a radiologist." And I said, "Okay." And my wife's an engineer. And I said, "Baby, what do radiologists do?" And so, and she said, "You should know that." I said, "I'm just kidding." But I wasn't kidding, But the reality, he explained to me, and we tried to be very supportive of our children's dreams. He wanted to be an astronaut at one point, and believe it or not, I went to Huntsville, Alabama to space camp, and big old Lou got in one of those small beds, and then he wanted to be a lawyer, and we went on Judge Mathis. I think he got me there. I think he just wanted to be on TV. But I say that, this whole notion of being a radiologist, I said, "Son, why do you want to be a radiologist?" Well, my son babysat for one of our neighbors, Dr. Roki, who's a very prominent radiologist now up in the Milwaukee area. He babysat for the Rokis. And over time, Dr. Roki would come in and they would just talk about what he does. And so I use that example to suggest that having my son be exposed to someone who was a little different than his parents, who may have had a different career path, but the reality is having opportunity to have him exposed. And what we're doing in this plan for transformation, and what you should be very proud of for the parts you played in it, is the opportunity to expose people, to expose young people, to expose older people, but to expose folks to opportunities that will allow them to reach their highest potential. So again, we thank you so much for coming out and showing interest in the work we do. And thank you again for the parts you played in our success. Thank you.
If you have questions, Teresa is, and Mr. Tweed back there, do the back row of the room. Just raise your hand with the questions. And we have one starting off here. Remember, neatness is really important. I give extra credit. Louis, how has or how will the current economic turndown directly affect your efforts?
Well, the current economic turn down is that it's a turn down. We're struggling. When we look at our efforts to complete the plan, there are three things we're faced with: not getting enough money from the federal government, higher cost of material, and then the slowdown of this market. But we're spending more of our time figuring out how we can work around this issue than how it's stifling us.
This is from Robin. Where are you? Robin Snyderman, Metropolitan. There you are, Robin. A two-sided question. We have never had one of those. This could take a while, Louis. Prepare yourself. It's a typical MPC question. It's multifaceted. Recognizing that housing authorities nationwide look now to the CHA as a leader in transforming isolated public housing high-rises into thriving mixed-income opportunities, how will you respond to perhaps the inevitable question from our new president's administration? And now the question, that was the preamble. What should the federal government do differently to encourage more private sector investment and interagency collaboration to support your success? Boy, if there has ever been a chance for you to knock one out of the park.
Absolutely. Very, very good question. I think that one of the unique pleasures of being in this position, as it relates to, our favorite son being the president-elect, is there's a tremendous amount of attention and or pressure that we have on us in Chicago to set a standard, to continue to develop on a model that shows that what we're doing is correct. And I think the advice we would look for is that HUD, the administration clearly looks at housing authorities as individual entities, not as a collective group of we need to have our hands held in order to move forward. No one knows better what's good for our community than those of us who live in our community. And so we would hope for, that level of autonomy to demonstrate the prudence needed to move this plan forward. And we're up for the challenge. It's kind of that nervous and humble thing I talked about earlier. But we're clearly up for the challenge of continuing, and I need to say continuing because it was clearly on its way, continuing to show the plan for transformation as the model by which we should fashion affordable housing in this country.
This question is from Keith Kalinowski. What is being done with the remaining high-rises at Cabrini Green?
We have about 4 sites: Cabrini, Lathrop, Cabrini, Lathrop, Ickes, and LeClaire are the 4 sites that we're still working to complete. And by the end of the plan, as we've done in some of the beautiful pictures you've seen, Cabrini will have a new look as well.
No other questions? No other comments? How about a big round of applause for Louis?
Thank you.
Go ahead. We have here the official City Club mug. Many people in this audience have this mug, and I'm sure that Valerie will bring one to that. What's his name? What's he been around? Barack something or another. Here's your mug, a 1-year membership to the City Club of Chicago, and for light reading, the history of the City Club of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.
Thank you.